Hi, my name is Liz Hathway and this is my astrological look at the week ahead. It's the week of the Spring Equinox, March the 21st, although this year it's happening on March the 20th, on Tuesday. Sun moves into Aries, start of the spring, but also the start of the astrological year. And, you know, certainly from a mundane perspective, if we look at traditional astrology, then this ingress, the horoscope for this ingress would be seen as, as a sort of metaphor, if you like, for the year ahead. It's a very powerful ingress. It's the sun in Aries, it's Mars ruled. And Mars is at the moment in Capricorn in the sign of its exaltation. Mars is also out of bounds at the moment, which means it's kind of ripped up the rule books. It's making it up as it goes along, and it's kind of has a disregard for, for the law, for the sun, for the, the principle of power and authority. It's very wayward in a way, very wayward Mars. It's been a while since we've had this kind of a temperature, shall we say, certainly with Saturn in Capricorn. We have to go way back. The last time that we had Mars in Capricorn and Saturn in Capricorn at the Spring Equinox was in 1988. It was around the Spring Equinox that the Halabja chemical attack occurred, which was the use of chemical weapons by Saddam Hussein against the Kurdish people, when about 3,000 to 5,000 people were killed, mainly civilians. So this was Mars out of bounds. It's kind of, reckless and dangerous, and will go to an extreme, the whole adage of Capricorn in a way, and the ends justifies the means. That's the thing that we have to always bear in mind with these kinds of energies. A similar thing in 2003 when Saturn wasn't in Capricorn, but Mars was at the Spring Equinox, and Mars was also out of bounds in Capricorn. This was in 2003. This was just around the time of the start of the Iraq War. And again, the whole I think of chemical weapons being used to was the whole reason that we were supposedly going to war was to banish these weapons, which ultimately didn't exist. So there's this rash quality to there's a sort of destructiveness, and also as I said, that rip up the rule book, and we play by our rules. And it's really interesting, I think, that we have Saturn in Capricorn at the moment. I mean, the Cold War began, really to get really icy cold in the 60s when the wall went up, the Berlin Wall. This was with Saturn in Capricorn. We had the fall of the wall with Saturn conjunct Neptune in Capricorn. And now as Saturn's in Capricorn again, this news with Mars in the picture as well, this whole poison thing in Britain. There's actually again this mention of a Cold War. So the temperature in the collective is definitely very polarized at the moment. And there's a lot of hot talk. And we can see this as well, if we look at Tuesday, for example, with Mercury conjunct Venus in Aries. In a way, that's lover talking, passionate words, enjoying just the verbal exchange. It's quite fiery. It sort of as well wants to forge ahead. Aries wants to break new ground and pierce into the heart of things. And so in some ways, if we're passionate about things on Tuesday, certainly because we've got Moon in Taurus as well, lovely, great productive earthbound Moon in Taurus, it can be a very quick energy, get things done sort of day. But then with Mercury going retrograde on Friday, I think it is, Mercury turns retrograde, am I right with that? Yes, in 1654 Aries. Then there's a sense of, oh gosh, I've dropped a lot of stitches, I have to backtrack. It's this, act in haste, repent in leisure. You have to take a step back when Mercury goes retrograde, and it's possible that things have been left undone, or things that you thought you'd finished but you find out you haven't, because there's this tendency with Mercury in Aries to rush ahead, to really overlook the fine details. So it's a kind of a quite intense week with Venus square Pluto as well on Saturday. Venus in Aries. This is, again, as I said, a very fiery Aries, passionate. She wants, to almost like, it's almost like the Venus as the sort of huntress. She wants to track down and pursue. It's almost a kind of a male energy to Venus in Aries, and then suddenly there's this square to Pluto. In the meantime, Mercury is backed off and is going retrograde, so she's out there a bit on her own. And there's this clash then with Pluto. And Pluto, to me, always represents this sort of the invisible, you know, the invisible power, the powers that control that we can never quite put a finger on. It's like corporations are, to me, the personification of Pluto in a way, because who's accountable, you know, who writes the rules, there's a lot of things that we don't actually see that's moving behind the scenes. And Venus in Aries, this could be an outspoken woman, this could be a female, you know, sort of opening her mouth, speaking her mind, going it alone. But it could also be, you know, the uncovering some kind of scandal, or, you know, recovering of treasure, you know. I mean, things with Venus, Pluto, there's a lot of connection here with wealth and riches, and, you know, or is it inner treasure, you know? Are we sort of trying to wrestle with ourselves? But there's always that element of force where there's a square. And Venus is, you know, I mean, we know what happened to Persephone, you know. Pluto's you know, is quite prepared to go to extremes as well to get what he wants. You know, it's like what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine as well. There's that element of force. So it's a mixed bag this week. We have this powerful, very powerful solstice this year, hugely powerful. And in the beginning of the week, we have a much more, you know, with the Sun conjunct Chiron. You know, I always think with Sun conjunct Chiron, the theme is really this healing and the hurt in here. And then that lovely Taurus moon with its trine to Pluto, which is saying, you know, if we do some work on ourselves, we can now really, you know, it can be productive and it can be fruitful. But then it's followed by the opposition with Jupiter in Scorpio. And there's always, with Jupiter in Scorpio, a sort of sense of the work is never completely finished. There's always more layers. It's like peeling the onion in a way. There's another layer underneath. So it's, yeah, Mercury retrograde. Yeah, it's a mixed bag. It's a very mixed bag. But with the planets now, as I've said in my year review of the year, you know, with Mars coming up into conjunction with Saturn, then moving in between Saturn and Pluto and being out of bounds. He's out of bounds until the 7th of April. Which means as well Venus Mercury is retrograde till the 15th of April. So there's a bit of a slowdown, but also that you get the feeling with Mars between Saturn and Pluto that there's something cooking here. There's something brewing in the pot there. I wish you a great week. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.